Welcome back to another episode of Ultimate Potential, a mental health podcast. I'm Tony.
And I'm Craig.
And together we are Tony and Craig.
That's
and
right.
We are here to talk about all things mental health. And we're excited because we have Meg Ortiz here in the studio with us. Welcome, Meg.
Hi, thanks for having me.
We are super excited to have Meg today because she's local, right? And we've known her for a long time. I knew her before she even knew that I knew her because I knew her family. So very special that you're here and that you've agreed to come on.
Yeah, thanks for having me today.
Yeah.
And the reason we were so interested in having you on the podcast, Meg, is because you have a lot of background when it comes to mental health. You have your own story, which you're going to share with us. You're an alumni of therapeutic programs, and you're a mental health advocate. You've done a lot to help. You've done a lot to give back after you were able to kind of find your own healing. So with that, I'm wondering if you could just share a little bit about your past and your story, whatever you feel comfortable with.
Yeah. I'll start by saying I'm still on my journey, right? I'm still very much in the process of healing and growing and figuring out what it means to be Meg at Meg's best.
Mm-hmm.
But I guess that's just part of the journey, right? It's a journey for all of us.
Journey,
Yeah.
right?
I was going to say.
Yeah, we're all on that journey of continual growth, or at least hopefully we're all continually growing and continually healing. But my mental health journey kind of starts when I was 12. I was diagnosed with anxiety. I grew up a competitive gymnast and with some tough Russian raised coaches that really drilled in this perfectionistic mindset into me that I still have distilled into me still.
It doesn't leave, does it?
Yeah, no.
Constantly there.
We're still figuring out how to work around how my brain is wired due to that those years of training. But the anxiety, I did therapy, medication. I was raised in a very, very loving home with, a traditional Christian setting and had great parents who did everything they could to make sure I was happy and taken care of and active and living the dream little girl life that I wanted to be living. But when I was 15, I had this de-escalation, kind of a spiral where my anxiety just collided with depression and insecurities and this deep need for, I don't know, people to like me and me to like myself. And it wasn't a great mix with I was dating this boy who was definitely not the best for me, specifically for my mental health, and I just kind of started acting out and having behavioral issues and not being myself. And my parents got to this point where they were like, where's Meg? What's happened to our Meg? We don't really know what's going on, but we know something's wrong. And the resources, this probably wasn't quite yet when my dad called you, but it started with just behavioral issues, like it kind of, I think, does for most people, most teens, behavioral, acting out, running away, losing your temper, just things that were never really ever Meg, right? And then it just kind of spiraled from there. It turned into a loss of my sense of self almost, and well, not almost, definitely.
Yeah.
And just this deep sense of I don't know if I'm really doing anything helpful right now in this life and in this space that I'm taking up, and I'm not enjoying it either. In fact, I'm at this point where I'm not feeling anything. I'm not enjoying anything that I typically would enjoy. I'm not happy and smiley Meg like I usually am.
Mm-hmm.
And just kind of turned into this shell of a girl that wasn't really living anymore, if that makes sense. Which leaned me deeper into the depressive side. And my first self-harm attempt, not necessarily attempt, but I took a knife to my bedroom with me, and I looked up some videos or Googled some things on my phone of, what's the quickest way to do this that
Mm-hmm.
I can just not be here anymore, because I just don't feel like I should be here anymore. I don't think I'm needed. I don't think I am doing anything that is helping myself or other people at this point, and I don't really want to be here anymore,
Mm-hmm.
And it was kind of coming in waves, so once the wave ended, I went upstairs and grabbed my parents and told them something's not right. Something's not right. I am like wanting to hurt myself, and it's scary. And they took me to the hospital.
They were scared too.
Yeah, they were scared. They were scared. I'm coming to them scared with this kitchen knife that I had hid under my pillow.
Mm-hmm.
Like of course they're terrified. That led to a short-term stay at an acute facility. It was not productive whatsoever.
It doesn't work very well,
Yeah,
does it?
did not work.
Yeah.
Did not work.
When you say short term, are you talking like days, like a couple of days?
Yeah, well, no, I believe I was there for 13
Okay.
days.
So like, yeah.
Yeah, and I think,
Short-term.
I think around day 7, I realized, if I want to get out of here, I've just got to start faking it,
Mhm.
because this is not working.
So at first you were telling the truth.
Yeah, at
Yeah.
first I was open and realized I'm sick. I need help.
Mm-hmm.
And when I started seeing, how some of the staff and doctors were responding to that, and just not a great experience. I realized if I want to get home, I've just gotta
Tell them you feel good.
I've just gotta fake it. I just gotta put my face on.
Yep.
I've put a face on before. I can do it again. I got home a few weeks before Christmas, and kept that face on that I was so comfortable wearing.
Can I ask you a question?
Of course.
So you're in the hospital and you changed your view. At first you had some hope,
Mm-hmm.
half a week or whatever. And then you're like, this isn't working.
Yeah.
This sucks. So then you're like, I got to get out of here.
Mm-hmm.
Did that overall, I just assume that it would decrease your hope. You're like, oh, I tried what the medical field said to do.
Yeah, I think so.
Did it kind of destroy whatever hope you may have had in the first place?
I think so. I don't want to say that's what led me to my attempt, but I do definitely think there's a part of it that was, it almost leaned into that side in me that was like, nothing is going to fix me,
Mm-hmm.
right? I just am too broken. I just am too empty
Mm-hmm.
to be fixed, to heal and feel like Meg again. So I do think there was a part of over those next couple weeks,
Yeah.
I kind of stewed over this experience that I had and how unhelpful it really was, and um, how much that kind of validated the need for me feeling like this is kind of pointless,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
So the day after Christmas, I kind of was thinking like it's Christmas. I always feel something on Christmas. Christmas is
Yeah.
exciting, and we're giving
Sure.
gifts, and we're receiving gifts, and we're hanging out as a family and eating yummy food. And I had been begging for a dog for years, and my sweet parents, if this isn't a testament to how great they are, they're at this point where they're like, what's going to help Meg? Well, she's been asking
Dog.
for a dog for
Let's
years.
go get her a dog. Yeah.
Yeah, let's get her a puppy, which they did that year.
Mhm.
Excuse me if I get emotional because, an emotional girl, but I think I realized that day, if I can't feel something significant on Christmas
Right. With a puppy.
with a puppy who is like the cutest freaking thing in the world,
Mhm.
how am I gonna feel something after this? How am I gonna come out of this? And I don't really feel like I am worthy of feeling anything again at this point. I kind of think I'm crappy. I kind of think I kind of think there's just not a point anymore.
Mhm.
And so the day after Christmas, I attempted suicide in an extremely impulsive way. I was driving home on the freeway with my sister, who's 18 months older than me. Now my very best friend in the world, aside to my husband. But she had to return something from Christmas, so we drove up to the mall, and my parents were extremely hesitant to let me go, but I had this face on so well,
Mhm.
that my dad's always been my advocate, and he kind of told my mom, like, let her go, she'll be okay.
Mhm.
We drove to the mall. I was doing good, and then on the way home, I had a trigger where I genuinely think like a song came on,
Yeah.
and I was like, oh, this song, still to this day I can't listen to that song. Not that I think it would trigger anything, but just
Yeah.
maybe too
Yeah.
deep
Like
of a
why?
memory.
Yeah.
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 Yeah. So I threw myself out the car at 80 miles an hour on the freeway with my sister driving. And it's, without getting too spiritual, um, I made sure that there was a car behind us
Yeah.
when I jumped. I made sure that we were going fast enough. I made sure that I'd be able to throw myself against the door hard enough to get myself out of there quickly before my sister had a chance to
Put on the
brake.
brakes. Yeah.
I checked all of those things that in my mind was like, if I am going to relieve myself and my family of this empty void that I have become, I've got to do it right. And still, I still made it, and somehow magically there was not a car behind us anymore, and not one on the side of her either, or in front. The car was just magically gone. And I somehow landed softly, even though I landed directly on my head. Like,
Yeah.
fate kicked in, and or call it fate, or
You said, yeah, you don't have to be shy on a
Yeah.
podcast.
Yeah.
You can share your faith and your beliefs. But
Yeah,
you
yeah.
think that God intervened.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I 1,000%,
Mhm.
and I'm gonna cry. I 1,000% believe that God's like, what the crap is Meg doing down there? You know, like, I thought maybe she would get it together, but she's not. So it's time for me to step in, and he did. You know, um, I spent I don't know how many days in the hospital. In fact, I don't even know if I've asked my
time.
parents
Yeah.
since then. I know it took me a couple days to come to. Took me a couple days to start walking again. And get off of the IV and start eating food again. Um, and then the doctors and my parents explained to me, um, we've got to get you somewhere safe.
Yeah.
And I think at first I fought it. You know, I was like, no, I won't do it again. Just let me be home with my family.
Mm-hmm.
So the doctors came in and explained to me, we've got to get you somewhere safe. And it took me a second to realize they're right.
Yeah.
I think part of me was like, we're just gonna do this put on the face again cycle that I did last time.
Yeah.
And then next time I'll make sure
Yeah.
that I have all my ducks in a row, you know? Thankfully the professionals, you know, they were able to see this girl's not safe.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So they admitted me to uni,
Mm-hmm.
a short-term acute facility for a few weeks until my parents were able to find a residential facility for me that felt like a good fit, but also had a bed for me.
Yeah.
You know, that was kind of a process.
Yeah.
And also a bed for me that they were willing to take a 15-year-old girl who had this extremely impulsive attempt.
It's scary for the program.
Yeah, the programs are like
Because that, like, one death pretty much shuts you down, right?
exactly,
Mhm.
exactly. So a program that was willing to even take me on,
Yeah.
you know, which in my unstable, sick mind, I'm like, not even a facility wants me.
Oh.
You know, like,
Yeah.
Yeah.
how am I supposed to get better?
Mm.
Yeah.
But somewhere in that 2 weeks, I had a bit of a light bulb moment where I realized if I'm not doing this for me yet, I want to do it for my family.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and maybe it was, you know, my family came up to see me, and I think seeing them made me realize I have something to live for. In fact, I have something really, really beautiful and great to live for that I do love. Um, I just kind of lost it for a second, and I want to find it again.
So let me butt in real quick and just point out a couple of things. Number one, from what I'm told, I didn't know your family at this point, but from what I'm told, and you've even said your family was great
Yeah.
and they were well known in the community. You were kind of that family that maybe others looked at and thought they have it all together. We wish we
Yeah.
could be like
Yeah.
Meg and her family, right? You were you had a really great face that you put on, and maybe a lot of people in the world thought everything was just great. But I think I want to point that out because number one, we can't assume from outside appearances. You can't look at the family across the street that seems like they're doing great and just assume that there's not heartache and difficulty and mental health issues behind the closed doors.
Mhm.
And the second thing is that it sounds like your family, a lot of parents, when this happens, the first thing they say is, you know, what have I done wrong? Where did I go wrong? Did we mess up? Did we mess up, Meg? Did we, what have we done? And it sounds to me like you're saying, my family was great. This is just something that happens. And I know that's true, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
We work with so many families, and by and large, the families that come to us are great families with really committed, loving parents, high functioning people. The best and the brightest come to us. And it's not about blame. I mean, every family can improve, right?
Mm-hmm.
But it's not about blame. It's not about, I messed up my kid. It's about, we are in a war zone, and we're on a battlefield every day. It's us against these mental health issues.
And it's a bloody one.
It's
Yeah.
and so we're on the front lines, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you're on the front lines too, in a different way, and advocating for mental health. And so, for the families and the listeners that we have that may be looking in themselves, and you look in the mirror and your parental self-esteem is really low, and you play the blame game, I just would invite you to not go there. It's always good to want to evolve and improve, right? But you don't have to be another victim, another casualty of this battle, right?
Yeah. And being a perfect parent
Yeah.
is not going to
Doesn't.
make these things not happen.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
It's not. It's still gonna happen. Mental illness is very, very real.
Mm-hmm.
No one's untouchable.
Yeah. It's
Yeah.
right.
Amen.
To be even to get more, I guess, on a visceral level, you spend your whole life, and so many people assume that we dedicate our lives to these young people, to the teenagers of the world, to the young people of the world. But when you dig very clearly into my history, right, personally, for me, it is about serving the parents, because I'm a parent, right?
Mm.
And what inspired, my career was the birth of my first daughter, right? And working in treatment centers that I didn't trust and didn't like, and thinking, okay, what source, how do families find something good? But there are so many people that I love, that I care about, that I respect, that are well educated, well meaning, sensitive. And they assume, and they'll be at dinner with me or whatever, and they'll say things like, "Well, don't you kind of think that maybe the parents are that they just assume that the vast majority of the families who find themselves in residential treatment, that you can just like blame the parents." And so it's not just parent self-blame. And Tony and I, we've been dealing with this, but I get emotionally defensive. Like I turn into kind of like a mama bear.
Absolutely.
Even with my close friends that say things like that. My own sister told me that once, and I think I had probably the most come to Jesus talk with my sister I've ever had in my life, because parents like your parents, for example, they're just doing their best. They just love. But the mental health stuff, it just doesn't go to the unskilled parents, right? It goes to
Right.
everyone.
Everyone.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, and I almost think, in that time when I'm in this acute facility waiting to be admitted to a more long-term facility, that amount of time that I had to just sit with myself,
Mm-hmm.
and reflect and ask myself, why am I feeling like this?
Mm-hmm.
Or, why am I not feeling anything at all, actually? The thought in my mind was never, oh, my parents didn't love me enough.
Right.
My parents didn't take care of me well enough. My parents didn't raise me well enough.
Mm-hmm.
That was never it, because in fact it's quite the opposite. If my parents didn't love me enough to get me help, I would not be here.
Right.
And I don't come from a family who has plenty of money to be throwing at
Right.
expensive healthcare needs.
Right.
It was not by any means easy for my parents to shell out the money and find a way to pay for their 15-year-old daughter
Yeah.
to just be safe and live another 24 hours,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
But yeah, I kind of had that moment where I realized I want to get better. And over a few days, it took a few days, but that initial thought of, okay, I'm going to do this for my family because I don't want to hurt them more. And I do love them.
Mm-hmm.
It kind of grew into, maybe I want to do this for myself too. Maybe I do think I deserve to be happy. And maybe I do think I'm valuable.
Yeah.
Maybe even just a little bit.
Yeah.
You know? So by the time my parents found a facility that they both felt like this program will be beneficial for our daughter, and they were also willing to take me, and they also had a bed for me,
Mm-hmm.
I was ready. I was ready, and I think that is a huge step
Yeah.
in not healing, because I don't know if I was necessarily healing yet, but just
But it's like a
even being
prerequisite
willing.
for you
Yeah,
to make advancements toward the healing, right?
exactly. Exactly. I think you can't get better until you want to.
Mm.
Yeah.
You just can't. So I was picked up a few days later after I had this come to Jesus moment with myself of realizing I have a little bit of value. Maybe I'll dig into that a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
I was picked up and by this big Samoan dude
Mm-hmm.
and a Samoan girl who was, definitely bigger than me.
Yes.
Put me in the car, put the child lock on.
No more jumping out of cars.
No more jumping out of cars. The gal sat next to me, right next to me. And they definitely at first had this face on of like, you can't try anything with us because it's not gonna work, sweetheart.
Yeah. Yeah.
But we're driving over to the facility, and they tell me we're gonna take you to dinner because we don't know how long you're gonna be here, so this might be your last good
Really good food.
meal. Yeah.
Yeah, that's so sweet.
Yeah, and they openly
Thoughtful.
told me, so sweet. They openly told me like the food's not great, so
Enjoy.
eat what you want here. We went to a steakhouse. And I think that was my first, as dumb as it sounds, I think that was my first sign of like, these people are my family.
Yeah.
Mhm.
These people are about to be my new family, or added to my family.
Uh-huh.
And just the fact that they cared enough about me already to give me a meal.
Yeah.
And then prepare me for what I was about to be walking into, was very telling.
Yeah.
Very telling of the place I was about to be at.
Pretty cool.
So what happened at this place that worked for you?
I think one of the things that made it work was that I wanted to get better.
Mm-hmm.
All of the other gals that I lived with, there were a handful of gals who were dealing with their own struggles.
Mm-hmm.
An array of things that,
Different diagnoses.
different
issues.
diagnoses, different issues, different backgrounds,
Mm-hmm.
from all over the country.
Mm-hmm.
And I quickly realized this is going to be a tough environment for me. This is very different than the home that I'm used to living in.
Or the high
Right.
school that you've been going to.
Or the high school that
Right.
I've been going to.
Mhm.
My classes are going to be entirely different. The
Mhm.
teachers are going to be entirely different. My new roommates are very different than my sister,
Mm-hmm.
but I learned so much from these difficult, I say with all the love in my heart, difficult girls
Yeah.
that I was living with.
Yeah.
I think the other biggest thing that helped me was the staff, and this staff who had already welcomed me in, had already shown me, we're gonna take care of you. Truly just became my family.
Yeah.
This facility that I attended was mostly Polynesian staff. I didn't have very much exposure to the Polynesian cultural at all leading up to this. But just the most loving people, you know. So I have my my now poly dad, I call him. His name's Jerome. We call him Romy, my homie. He was the dad of the house. I have my aunties and uncles, Vi, Vi Lily, Puka, Donnie's my uncle, and he was with me almost every day of my journey. That just became my family.
You really are talking about them like they're family. You're calling
They
them aunts and
really,
uncles.
yes, they really are my family. I mean, I was on the phone with Romy this morning. Like it has been 9 years, almost 10.
Yep.
9.5 years, and they really are my family. They really are, and they have been such a huge part in my healing. There were times where I would get out of my therapy session and I would just be having another moment where I'm like, this freaking sucks. All these girls drive me nuts. I'm not getting where I want to yet in my therapy sessions. But I can't just go home. Right. Because I'm not allowed to. I can't just get in a car and drive home. I am on lockdown.
Yeah.
And Rome or Donnie would sit me down and sometimes it was tough love. Sometimes it was, girl, you're here because of the decisions that you made to be here. Or sometimes it was a little bit of TLC, saying like, yeah, compassion, saying like, you've got 2 more days until your family session, which is when my family would get to come on campus, and my mom and dad would get to come on campus and have a session with me. And man, would I just count down to those days to get to see them, even if the session was freaking hard. They got me to that next point, right? So almost this drive of, while you're finding yourself and your worth again, let us carry you. Let us carry you to the next step. We're here for you. We've got your back. And in fact, one of Romy's things that he would always tell me, like, I'd have a breakdown or I'd be hiding in the corner reading my book, trying to protect myself, isolate a little bit, and he'd come over and be like, I got you. You're fine. I got you. And just that little I got you for whatever reason.
It's just enough.
Is just enough.
Yep.
Right. And even one of the other staff, Junior, who I believe was the area director, or I didn't get to see him a ton, but definitely part of my family. He would connect with me spiritually and tell me there's a reason that God saved you. A lot of people don't survive their suicide attempts. They become suicide. It's not even an attempt. So why did you make it and someone else didn't? I need you to tap into that and just keep going.
Yeah.
So I don't know if if that's a typical experience for people in residential. But for me, what carried me the most was my family. My family that was waiting for me at home, and the staff who became my family, who's still my family almost 10 years later. Um, and just the desire to get better.
I think you're, you know, typical, whether it's statistical or not, your story is very common, right? It's not the exact story for every child, and because every child has their own unique situation, right? Some are a little more insightful, and some are a little more rebellious, and some are a little more,
Mm.
right, whatever, and they all have their own things, as you know, because they were your roommates.
Yeah.
But but the human interaction between the people that work at the center, right, almost always, right, is part of one of the main key central parts of healing.
Well,
So,
when you
yeah.
don't feel worthwhile, um, it's amazing. You know, your parents and your family see you and love you and cherish you, but for some reason, for young people especially, it takes someone. Sometimes
Yes.
it takes someone outside of the
Yeah.
family who
Yes.
sees you as precious and worthwhile,
Mm-hmm.
and you kind of live on that borrowed light, right?
Yeah.
Until you can get back to where you want to be.
Other
Yeah.
than your first boyfriend.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Other than that fun
Yes.
experience.
Yeah. Well, okay, so talk to us about jumping forward a little bit, because so we've known literally thousands of families, right? And there's always the ones that come out, right? Like, had a student fly out 2 weeks ago with his family. Like, what he wanted to do for spring break was come back to Telos and talk to the boys. He's been gone for 8 months,
Yeah.
to give them hope and say, look, you can make it. Here's what I'm doing. And I got a text late last night. It says, hey, from a kid from California. I'm I'm planning my summer vacation, right? He's graduating from college. He's like, I want to come out, want to spend my summer vacation in Utah. Like, I want to spend some time with the Telos boys. Talk to me about, tell us, share just a little bit about why you think it's important to do what you're doing now. Like, literally right after, when you were still in high school, you had already started to talk about suicide prevention and awareness and working with the governor and the state and politics and all that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Why? And tell us a little bit about that.
Um, I don't know if there's a simple answer, but because I knew it needed done and I didn't know if anyone else would do it. Does that
Yeah,
count?
it does.
It does.
Yeah. Yeah.
I, you know, this world of mental health is a big world, but once you've tapped into it, you don't really know about it, right? It's not everyone is extremely educated on what to watch for and what are some red flags
Mm-hmm.
that show you someone isn't safe or someone's family is hurting. Um it's it's almost a quiet world until you're in it. And not because the mental health world is quiet, but just because it's what's the word I'm looking for? It just is.
Well, I think there's many words, and I'm only guessing at what you're
Yeah.
looking for, but sometimes there's a lot of shame around families and situations.
Mm.
Sometimes there's a lot of judgment, and so people want to just be private. And then there's a lot of professional training, and all the laws are set up, the HIPAA laws for confidentiality.
Mm.
And so even when you're a client and a family, it's like the professionals have trained you to be secret, right? Like, it's their
Right.
secret. And then, so it's like all the stuff going on, and all the advocacy and all the awareness classes that are going on in the schools and all education stuff. But then the people going through it still, like, I don't know what the average is, 98%,
Yeah.
99, 80, I don't know. But a high percentage of the people they continue to be private about it
Mm-hmm.
because there are still cultural stigmas. There's people are afraid that they'll lose opportunities for employment or for whatever, right? It's
Yeah.
like, so it stays
How is it going to affect
quiet.
me down the road?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think there's a part of that it's so much easier just to stay quiet about it and keep it to yourself. It is so much harder to put yourself out there, be vulnerable, and try even a little bit to make a difference for someone.
Yeah.
That's hard.
Yeah.
It's hard and
It's hard.
kind of exhausting.
Well, it's been 9 years, like you said, right?
Yeah.
And you're still like, we're dragging you in here, and you have to relive like
No,
all the
it's
pain
great.
and everything,
It's
right?
great.
But yeah, it is hard. It's not easy work.
Right now in the state of Utah and in the nation, there is a pretty active campaign to rein in and bring tighter regulation and maybe even reduce the number of beds for residential treatment for young people. I just read a study this morning that between 2010 and 2020, so in that 10-year period, the number of residential treatment beds in the nation decreased by 66%.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
such a high number.
And what we have right now is we have a lot of families that need help but aren't able to find the help. What started this and what continues all of this is some high-profile people, some celebrities, others who have had bad experiences, who have a really good connection. They know how to use media. And so they create a perception that residential treatment and youth programs are bad, are harmful, are abusive, are just looking for money, are ineffective. When all the studies show, in fact, in this study, it actually put the numbers to it that 99.98% of all people who go through residential treatment centers are safe, and meaning they're not abused, they're not assaulted by another client or by a staff. They survive the issue unscathed. So 99.98%. Now, when you compare that to kids going to the public high school or going to a church or just living in the community, not in treatment, you're infinitely safer in a residential treatment setting than you are outside of one.
Right.
So to paint the picture that these are risky places to be, that need to be reined in or reduced or eliminated, is really sad. It's really sad and makes me worry about all these people that are scared off of finding the right kind of help or can't find the right kind of help because of this movement. You've actually come with us to the state of Utah to testify with some laws, right, that were regulating residential treatment, to testify for and in support of these kinds of programs. Can you tell us a little bit more why you did that?
Yeah, I think that 99.8% of people who are safe and have a safe experience in a facility, like we just talked about, not everyone's vocal about it. A lot of people, in fact, keep it to themselves. That other, I'm not great at math, what, 0.02% or whatever?
Is that
Yeah.
exactly what it is.
Of
0.02.
people who have a crappy experience at a facility for whatever reason tend to be very loud about their experience, this sense of injustice that they've been wronged.
And maybe rightfully so, because
Right.
if something bad were to happen to me or to my child,
Yeah.
I'm not going to be quiet about that.
No.
I'm going to be loud.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And I don't think it's wrong at all.
Right.
In fact, some of the stories that we've heard
Yeah.
of families who have lost someone or had a poor experience, some of them are avoidable. Some of them might not be as avoidable, but I don't think change is bad in programs, in facilities, in the approach that we take to it. What I do think is bad is cutting down the access and opportunity for kids who need it
Yeah.
to receive that treatment and that help, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why I felt so strongly that I want to be a part of this group of people that is going to speak up and voice my experience that I've had, because who else is going to?
Right.
If it's not going to be me, who's going to?
Yeah.
Right.
And I don't know if I feel okay with just hoping
Right.
that someone else does it.
Right.
So if I have a bad experience, if I'm harmed by an electrical appliance of some kind, what I should do is maybe campaign to make that one electrical appliance safer and better. What I shouldn't do is campaign to have electricity and all electrical appliances worldwide shut down, turned off, and we don't need them anymore. And
No more
that
electricity for anyone.
right.
That's right.
And that seems to be the approach that some of the critics of youth treatment, inpatient youth treatment settings are kind of advocating for, which simply isn't the right thing.
Right.
No, it definitely, I think you explained that really well. It's it's the wrong approach. I don't think that these people think that they're in the wrong at all. And I don't know if I do either, but I do think the approach is maybe not the best way of approaching it, just like you explained. You know, I don't think electricity in and of itself is bad.
Right.
Mhm.
Maybe if we have a faulty toaster or whatever it
Right.
is
Right.
that shocked you, maybe let's address that issue. But that doesn't mean that everyone else who needs electricity should have to go without it.
I think it's about balance. As we know in life, health is in the middle. So on one hand, do treatment programs, can they get more effective and safer? Yes, and we should do that. On the other hand, should we validate the need for these treatment programs and support them and not scare the world away from them, but instead help create more access to them? That balance right in the middle, that's where we need to live.
I think so
And not
too.
an extreme of defending. If we defend our weaknesses, then they're ours to keep, right?
Mm-hmm.
But we also don't want to throw the baby out with the bathwater. And so
Right.
I for one, am really grateful for your advocacy efforts in helping tell the world a story of the other side of the coin. As I say, there's no pancake that's so thin it doesn't have two sides, right?
Yeah.
You're there. We hear a lot about the one side, and you're able to say, "Hey, there's this other side, and it saved my life, and it saved my family." And thank you.
Meg, if you have advice for either parents and or 15-year-old young girls, right, who
Mhm.
feel empty inside, what is that advice? If you would like to take the one golden gem, what can
Yeah.
you give them today?
Yeah. Um, it's a loaded question,
Mm-hmm.
but I think what I would tell the parents is you're not broken as parents,
Okay.
and there is help accessible and great help that can be so beneficial to your child. And it's scary and it's new, but it's worth stepping into something scary and new, and trust that the professionals, they know what they're doing. These programs and these facilities want to help. They want to love you and your child and help you change and progress and grow. The other thing that I would maybe tell the parents is it was so much easier for me healing when I knew that my mom and dad were growing and healing at the same time as me.
They were doing work.
Yeah, does that make sense?
Absolutely.
It's a
Yeah.
It's not their fault that you were there, but it's their responsibility to dig in deep. Just like you
yeah,
dig in.
and they're learning and growing at the same time that I am.
Yeah.
And that was comforting for me. There were plenty of family sessions where my parents would ask me, what do you want us to know about this feeling that you're feeling, or this experience, and how can we help?
Mm-hmm.
And then they would go, and they'd, behind doors, they do their researching and their help and their therapy themselves, their healing through this process, because they were obviously really hurt too. And their healing was just as important and valid as mine is, because we're all still healing and growing. I think the parent side is just as important as the child's. For that 15-year-old girl out there who feels like she's nothing, I don't know if me telling them that they are important and worthy will change anything, but you are.
There you go.
And there is help. There is a way to feel something again. There is a way to be happy again. And it's beautiful. Once you get on that other side, it is so worth crossing that bridge to get to the other side, to feel joy again. And there are other people who need you to go through this journey so that you can help them later.
That's beautiful.
That's beautiful.
I'm going to push you just one step further, because
Yeah.
you were first person telling your history about the emptiness. Can you just share with the public here today how you feel about yourself today?
Yeah.
Can you do that for us?
Absolutely. And I might cry as I do it. I like myself finally.
Good.
And I don't know if I could say that every day, because again, it's a continual journey. But I like myself now. I think I'm fun.
Yeah.
I think I'm worth it. I think I'm worth the time and energy that it takes to be Meg. And I don't think that, my bi-weekly therapy sessions and my medication is a weakness of myself. I think it's cool that I'm using the resources that I have.
Isn't that's
yeah,
awesome.
whether it's trendy or not, I think it's a strength.
Yep.
Well, I'd just like to go on the record saying thank you for coming with such vulnerability and courage, for spending the time with us. We talk to a lot of people on these podcasts, and we love all of our guests.
Yeah.
This has been special, though, right?
Yeah,
Thank you.
for sure.
Is there anything else?
I don't have any cool websites or anything, but I think just what everyone should know and walk away from with this is your support system and your circle is important. So find value in that.
Thanks for listening. Your mental health journey is so important to us. We'd love your help spreading the word so we can reach as many people as possible. Don't forget to share, like, and subscribe here on our social media or wherever you access your podcasts. Thanks.